standing out in the cold. And it's just a great turnout. So Rochester, thank you very, very much. And before I go further, let me introduce you to somebody who is going to be a great first lady, my wife, Jane Sanders. And let me thank Rennie Cushing, who's doing a great job in the legislature. Rennie, thank you, and for your support. And let me thank Sarah Wilson, who's the founder of the Facebook group, Deaf People for Bernie Sanders. Sarah, thank you. And let me thank Michael Moore. Michael Moore has played an extraordinarily important role in modern America because he has had the courage as a filmmaker to raise issues and talk about things that the corporate media often does not talk about. So, Michael, thank you for your support and for all the great work you do. Let me thank Mindy Mesner for her support and for being one of the great environmentalists in New England. You have heard from Mark Pecan, who is a co-chair of the House Progressive Caucus, a great congressman from the state of Wisconsin. Mark, thank you so much. And let me thank Senator Nina Turner. Now, my only criticism of Senator Turner is I always have to follow her, which is a hard thing to do. But Senator Turner has not only been running around the state of Iowa, she's not only been running around New Hampshire, she's been running all over this country. And not only as part of our campaign, what she is doing is the most important work that anybody can do, and that is involve working people in the political process. That's what Senator Turner has been doing, and we thank her so much for that. So today is going to be we were kind of spent more time in Washington than I had anticipated with the impeachment trial. So today is going to be a very busy day here in New Hampshire. We started in Concord, we went to Dover, we're here. We're going back to Concord, we're going to Merrimack, we're going back to Manchester. So we got a busy day. So I'm going to be a little bit shorter than I usually am, and only 2 hours. It's a joke. And let me say that our campaign is off to a great start. After finally the votes were counted in Iowa, took them a little while, we won the vote by 6,000 votes. And in the caucus there, they have a realignment. People can go to a second choice if your candidate doesn't make 15%. We won that vote by 2,500 votes. And I don't know about other people, but here in northern New England, when you win the vote, you usually win the election. So, and I want to say a word to the people of New Hampshire. Not only, and thanking them not only for the support that we got 4 years ago, but for doing something extraordinarily important above and beyond the primary. And that is when we began the campaign in 2016, and we came to New Hampshire, we brought forth an agenda that spoke to the needs of working people. And the corporate media and the establishment said, well, Bernie is a nice guy, but his agenda is crazy. Nobody believes in that agenda. I mean, who in their right mind thinks that we should raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour? That's too radical an idea. Imagine making public colleges and universities tuition-free so that all people, regardless of their income, can get a higher education. How radical and crazy can you be? And healthcare is a human right, doing what every other major country on earth does. Who does Bernie Sanders think he is? Nobody would believe that. And talking about climate change as a national crisis. My God, who believes that? And what New Hampshire did, which was enormously important as the first primary state in the country, what New Hampshire said, these ideas are not radical. These ideas are not extreme. Having a government that works for all of us, not just the wealthy, is exactly what we have to do. And after we won here in New Hampshire, what ended up happening is we won 21 more states. But New Hampshire broke through and said to the establishment that, you know what, standing up for working families is not a radical idea. It's exactly what we should be doing as a nation. So New Hampshire, thank you so much for the enormously important role that you have played. What our campaign is about, and what I am enormously proud of, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, is that in this campaign up to now, we have received more campaign contributions, I think we're over 6 million, from more Americans, over 1.5 million, than any, averaging, I should tell you, $18.50 apiece. And that is more contributions from more people than any candidate in the history of the United States of America. Now, why is that important? It is important because it contrasts with the way other candidates do business. Other candidates, and there are several who have raised huge amounts of money from billionaires. Well, we don't raise large amounts of money. In fact, we don't raise any amounts of money from billionaires. We don't have a super PAC. We don't want a super PAC. We don't want billionaires' money. We are running a campaign for working people, funded by working people, and that is why we are going to win here in New Hampshire and all over this country. And the other reason I believe we're going to win, not only here in New Hampshire, but across this country, is we are running a different type of campaign, not only in terms of how we fund it, but in terms of the grassroots movement that we are putting together. And I want you all to know that here in New Hampshire, we have knocked on hundreds of thousands of doors. And I want to thank all of the, I imagine, thousands of volunteers from one end of the state to the other for getting out in the cold and the snow, knocking on doors, for making the phone calls that have to be made, for doing social media. Volunteers, staff, thank you so much for running a great campaign here in New Hampshire. And what this campaign is about is not only raising money in a different way than anyone has ever done it, it's not only having an unprecedented grassroots movement. We are doing those things because we have an agenda that speaks to the needs of working families in New Hampshire, in Vermont, and all across this country. A working class that has for so many years been ignored by the political establishment. And what our agenda is about is not complicated. We understand that when Trump talks about this great booming economy, what he is talking about primarily is that his billionaire friends are doing well. And that is right. Trump, every now and then, is right. His billionaire friends are doing very well. In fact, in the last 3 years since he has been president, billionaires have seen an $800 billion increase in their wealth. 37% increase in the wealth for billionaires. Last year, though, in the midst of this so-called booming economy, the average worker saw a 17-cent increase in his or her wages, less than 1% in real inflation accounted for wages. 37% increase in the wealth of billionaires, 1% increase in wages for working Americans. Hey, Mr. Trump, that ain't a great economy for the working families of this country. So when we talk about an economy that works for working people, what are we talking about? It's not complicated. Everybody knows what has to be done. We're going to raise that federal minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. And here is another really radical idea. You ready for a real radical one? Hold on, folks. Maybe women should be paid equally to men for the work they do. Whoa, what a radical idea. In the year 2020, I know, hey, sometimes you got to go out on the limb. But in the year 2020, as Senator Turner often says, women deserve the whole damn dollar, all right? Not 79 cents of it. And here's another radical idea. There are millions of workers out there who want to form unions. They want to join unions. They want to get involved in collective bargaining. So they got decent wages, decent working conditions. We have legislation that will double the number of union workers over a 4-year period. And at a time when the infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, our water systems, wastewater plants, our schools are crumbling all across this country, we have a proposal that will put millions of workers to work in good-paying union jobs, rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. What our campaign is about is thinking outside of the box. It's thinking beyond the discussions that take place in Congress or what you see in the corporate media. And ask you to take a step back and to say, what is going on here in the richest country in the history of the world? Everybody knows, this is kind of a common knowledge, that the future of our country depends upon how well our children are doing. Question, why in the richest country on earth do we give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1% in large corporations, and yet we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth? Together, we are going to change priorities in America and pay attention to the needs of our people, not to the wealthy. And when you talk about the children, you're talking about education. And that means we need to fundamentally reform a broken and dysfunctional childcare system so that every working family in this country knows that when they go to work, their kids are in high quality, affordable, and in fact, universal childcare in this country. That is not a radical idea. That's not a radical idea. And when we talk about education, it means that we're going to triple funding for low-income Title I schools so that all kids get a quality education, not an education dependent upon your zip code. And when we talk about public education, which is what we support, it means supporting educators, teachers. We live in a country where major league pitchers can sign contracts for hundreds of millions of dollars. And yet, a couple of months ago, I met with educators here in New Hampshire, and they were telling me there are school districts in this state where the starting salary of teachers is less than $28,000 a year. We are going to change that because we are going to change national priorities. We understand that education is one of the most important things a civilized society can do. What we want to do is attract the best and brightest young people to become teachers, to say with pride that they are so excited about having an impact on the lives of thousands of people, young people during their career. And that is why we're going to move forward so that no teacher in America makes less than $60,000 a year. And it also means when you talk about education, I want kids in the 6th grade here in New Hampshire and in Vermont to understand that if they study hard and do their schoolwork, they will be able to get a higher education, go to college, go to a trade school, regardless of the income of their families. All right, I grew up in a working class family. My family never had any money. But I want everybody in this state and in this country to know that if you take school seriously, you will be able to get a higher education because A, we're going to make public colleges and universities tuition free. And by the way, 4 years ago, that was a radical idea. Ain't so radical now. States and cities and counties all over the country are moving in exactly that direction. We've already had an impact. We got to do it in 50 states in America. And second of all, we are going to cancel all student debt in America. And we're going to do that. We're going to do that through a modest tax on Wall Street speculation. You all remember, and this is what changing governments is about. This is what it means to have a government that represents working people, not billionaires. 11 years ago, against my vote, Congress bailed out the crooks on Wall Street whose illegal behavior nearly destroyed the economy. Well, today we're going to bail out young people in this country and ask Wall Street to pay for it. And I'll tell you what else an agenda, progressive agenda, means in this country. It means that we will end the international embarrassment of being the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a human right. Now, Vermont borders on Canada, New Hampshire borders on Canada. And we have to ask ourselves why it is that our neighbors to the north, if you are seriously ill and you end up in the hospital there for a month, how does it happen that you get quality care there and you leave the hospital without paying a nickel because their system is publicly funded? How does it happen that we spend twice as much per capita as our Canadian friends and as friends throughout Europe, and yet, despite spending $11,000 for every man, woman, and child, outrageous sum of money, we end up with 87 million Americans who are either uninsured or underinsured. We have 30,000 people a year dying because they don't get to a doctor when they should because they're uninsured. We have 500,000 people going bankrupt every year because of medically related debt. In America, you should not go bankrupt because you're dealing with cancer or heart disease. That is an outrage. So our message to the healthcare industry, which made $100 billion in profit last year. Our message is that the function of a healthcare system in a humane and civilized society is to provide healthcare to all as a right, not to make billions in profits for the insurance companies and the drug companies. And I have a special word to the pharmaceutical industry. You know, in my office, we have a debate, and we say, which institution in America is the most corrupt and the most greedy? Some of us, there's a big debate going on. Some say, hey, Wall Street, they're totally crooked. All right, and some say the pharmaceutical industry. It's a hard choice. I kind of lean toward the drug companies being the most corrupt and greedy in the United States. So we got a message to the drug companies. We will not allow you to continue charging American people, in some cases, 10 times more for the same exact drug sold in Canada or in Europe. That's going to end. And it's not only the greed of the drug companies. Let's be clear. We're going to have an attorney general who is going to investigate them, and I tell you what the conclusion will be, because we know this already. They're corrupt. All right, so it's not greed, we know. Greed is people do anything to make money, but you could do that legally. But these guys are not only greedy, they are bloody corrupt. That means they engage in collusion, they engage in price fixing to artificially raise prices. And I will tell you this, because I know, Vermont has suffered from the opioid epidemic. States all over the country. New Hampshire has been particularly hard hit. And I suspect that in this room, there are folks who know people whose lives have been lost as a result of the opioid epidemic. And I want you all to hear this, because this is what greed and corruption is about. The pharmaceutical industry, the opioid manufacturers, produced a product that they learned soon enough was addictive and was killing people. But it was also making them a lot of money. And you know what they did? After they learned that this product was addictive and killing people, their response was to hire more salespeople and to push their product, just like heroin pushers do. Same thing, just like heroin pushers. So we are not only going to be lowering drug prices in this country significantly, and under Medicare for All, nobody will have to pay more than $200 a year for prescription drugs. But we are going to investigate, and we are going to deal with the criminal activities of the pharmaceutical industry. You cannot go around pushing a product that is addictive and killing people and get away with it. And we will not allow them to do that. Now, there's another issue out there, which is such a big issue. I mean, one of the things that we're trying to do in this campaign is to be honest with the American people and to say that there are very significant challenges out there. We can deal with those challenges if we stand together and have the courage to take on powerful special interests. But these are huge challenges. And if we're going to be honest with each other and with our kids, we have got to confront the challenges, not push them under the rug. And one of those challenges is obviously the existential threat to our country and the planet of climate change. Now, Donald Trump every day is doing horrific things in our country. But one of the worst things that he is doing, not only to the people of America, but to the people of the world, is denying the reality of climate change. And I will tell you something which should make all of us nervous. We can deal with it, but it makes us nervous. Is what the scientists are telling us is not just that climate change is real or it's caused by human activity. We all know that. What they are telling us now is they have underestimated the degree, severity, and speed in which climate change is ravaging our country and the world. They have underestimated the speed and the degree to which the polar ice caps are melting and the oceans are warming, which means significantly higher sea levels, which will inundate coastal regions in the United States and all over the world. Major American cities will be partially or maybe even completely underwater. I'm talking about Miami, New Orleans, Charleston, New York City, and other cities. I'm talking about Bangladesh, Vietnam, low-sea countries, which could be partially underwater. So I am very proud to tell you that we have not run away from this challenge. It's tough. It is a tough issue, and no one has a magical, quick solution, but it is an issue that has to be dealt with. And what we have proposed is a sweeping proposal on climate change, which is, in fact, the most comprehensive proposal ever brought forth by any candidate for federal office. It is based on the principles of the Green New Deal. And what that proposal basically says, in brief, is that, yes, we are going to take on the greed of the fossil fuel industry. We are going to tell them that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet, that whether they like it or not, we are going to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. But what makes this issue even more complicated is that if we did all of the right things in our country tomorrow, we will not have solved the problem, because climate change is a global issue. So as President of the United States, unlike Trump, I will not ignore the crisis. I will not exacerbate the crisis. But what I will do is lead the effort to reach out to countries all over the world, to the people of those countries, the people in China and Russia and India and Pakistan and Brazil and in Africa, all over the country, all over the world, and say that maybe, just maybe, that instead of spending $1.8 trillion a year collectively as a planet on weapons of destruction designed to kill each other, maybe we should pool our resources, fight our common enemy, which is climate change. You know, Trump wants to separate the United States from the rest of the world, but on issues of climate change, we know that if there was ever a time in world history that this countries all over the world had to come together for a common self-interest, this is that time, and that is what we have got to do. And when we talk about agendas that speak to the needs of Americans, we have got to end, again, the international embarrassment of having more people in jail than any other country. Now, I want you to think about it. China is 4 times our size in population. China is a communist, authoritarian country that does not tolerate dissent very well. We got more people in jail today than China does. And that is because we have a broken, and let's admit it, a racist criminal justice system. So we have a major proposal to reform that system. Let me just highlight a few of the aspects of that proposal. Number one, in terms of prevention, we are going to invest in our young people. We're not going to sit back and watch kids drop out of school, not have an education, not have any job training. We are going to invest in our young people in jobs and education so they can go out and make a good living in society. We're going to invest in those things rather than in more jails and incarceration. We are going to end private prisons and detention centers. Because we believe that corporations should not be making money locking up fellow Americans. We're going to end the absurd situation. I want everybody to know this because I think many people don't know it. I didn't know it a few years ago. Right now, we have over 2 million people in jail. We got 20% of those people, some 400,000 people in jail today, right now, who have not been convicted of anything. Do you all know that? Now, how do you stay in jail when you're not convicted of anything? And that is because those people who have been arrested, been charged with a crime, cannot afford the $500 they need for bail. So they're rotting in jail, often forced to agree to a plea bargain which may work against them. We are going to end the cash bail system in America. And I'll tell you what else we're going to do. We're going to end the so-called war on drugs. And that means we're going to legalize marijuana in every state in this country. And we are going to expunge the records of those who have been arrested for marijuana possession. All of us get sick to our stomachs and horrified when we turn on the TV and we see another mass shooting. And we ask ourselves, what is happening? How can somebody walk into a mall or a school? I mean, I don't even want to describe it because you all know it, and it is too disgusting to even be thinking about. How does it happen? Well, this is my promise to you. We are going to write gun safety legislation, which is what the American people want, not what the NRA wants. And right now, that's what's going on. I'm not going to tell you that everybody in America agrees on all aspects of gun safety legislation. That's not accurate. But what I can tell you is that over the years, as people have witnessed these horrible shootings, there is a coming together between rural states like Vermont and New Hampshire and urban areas like Chicago and LA. There is a coming together between gun owners, of which there are many in New Hampshire and Vermont, and non-gun owners. And what that broad consensus is about is, number one, we need universal background checks. People who have violent histories should not own weapons, guns. We're going to end the so-called gun show loophole and the straw man provision. And in the last few years, there is a growing majority of Americans who now understand something that I believe for like 30 years. And that is, we should not in this country allow for the selling and distribution of assault weapons designed to mow people down. Now, as a United States Senator, I hear a lot of speeches on the floor of the Senate. Not the most pleasant thing in the world. And often I hear from my Republican colleagues who give us their conservative mantra that they believe in small government. They believe in getting the government off the backs of the American people. And what I say to those conservatives, stop your hypocrisy. If you believe in getting the government off the backs of the American people, understand that it is women who must control their own bodies, not politicians and the government. So my promise to you on that issue is, number one, I will never nominate anybody to the Supreme Court or federal courts who is not 100% pro Roe v. Wade. Number two, we will fight for legislation that codifies, puts into law Roe v. Wade. And number three, we will significantly expand funding for Planned Parenthood. Now, this campaign is about two fundamental things. Number one, it goes without saying that we must defeat Donald Trump, the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. It gives me no pleasure to tell you what you already know, that we have a president who is a pathological liar. And by that, I mean, in sympathy to Trump, I don't know that he knows the difference between a lie and the truth. The media has documented thousands and thousands of lies that he has told since he's in office. Every day he is lying, okay? Furthermore, he is running an extremely corrupt administration. He is a racist, and it gives me no pleasure to say this. I have, conservative friends in Congress. We disagree, but, they are not racist as Trump is. They're not sexist. They're not homophobes. They're not xenophobes. They are not religious bigots. Throughout the history of this country, from, way back when, and all of the terrible things that were done to the Native American people, the abomination of slavery and all kinds of discrimination, what the struggle of this country was about is to become a more democratic and just society. That we try to end the discrimination that has existed not only against African Americans and Latinos, but the Irish, the Catholics, the Italians, Jews, whatever it may be. We try to move in the direction that Dr. King wanted us to look at people as human beings, judge them on who they are, not the color of their skin or superficial differences. That's the direction that we have tried to move in with great struggle as Americans. That's been the history of America. And now we have a president who is trying to take us back, trying to divide us up by the color of our skin, or by where we were born, or by our sexual orientation, or by our religion, or by our gender. We are not going to allow Trump to get away with that. We're going to bring our people together. We are going to bring our people together, black and white, Latino, Native American, Asian American, around an agenda that works for all of us. So defeating Trump is obviously enormously important, but it is not the only thing that we have got to do, all right? What we have got to do is transform our economy and our government so that it represents all of us, not just the wealthy and billionaire campaign contributors. And the message of our campaign is, as you know, it's us, not me. And that is, while it's a very nice bumper sticker, really is, it is actually a profound moral and political statement. That's what it is. Us, not me. What does it mean? It means essentially that we look at human life very differently than Trump and his friends do. What they say is, hey, the function of life is to make as much money as I can, and I will lie and cheat and step on people in order to do that. And when I become a billionaire man, I am great, I am successful. Our view is very different. Our view is to understand that as human beings, we are better human beings when we are compassionate, when my family cares about your family, when your family cares about my family, when we understand that we are all in this together. That reaching out, that every family in America has its problems, every person has their problems. That reaching out and helping other people, working with other people, makes us much better human beings than stepping on other people. And that's what our set of principles are about. So what this campaign is also doing is not only having an agenda that works for working people, we are identifying those entities in society that are happy with the status quo. When I talk about income and wealth inequality, 3 people owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society. When I talk about folks in New Hampshire and Vermont working 2 or 3 jobs, and yet 49% of all new income goes to the top 1%, we are appalled when we hear that. But the people on top are not appalled. They think it's great. Rich are getting much richer. What could be better than that? So in order to bring about change, it's not good enough for politicians to say, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. We have to ask ourselves, how does it happen? Why do we have more income and wealth inequality in America today than at any time in the last 100 years? Why are we the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people? Why do 45 million Americans have student debt and college is increasingly unaffordable for working families? Why are we not leading the world in the challenge of climate change? Why do we have more people in jail than any other country, et cetera, et cetera? And we're going to ask ourselves why. And that takes us back to who controls this country, who owns this country, the power structure of this country. This is a discussion you don't see on television. You got all those cameras there. You're not going to see this discussion on television. Okay? And that leads us, and you're not going to hear that discussion in Congress as well. You don't hear that discussion when people are bought and sold by wealthy campaign contributors, because that is an essential part of the problem. What we understand to bring about real change is that real change never takes place from the top on down, always from the bottom on up. Think about the history of America. Think about the struggles of the labor movement to stand up and fight for decent wages. Think about the civil rights movement. Think about the women's movement. Think about the gay rights movement. Think about the environmental movement. These are movements that involve tens of millions of people, not one person sitting there on top. And that is what Us, Not Me is also about. It is an understanding. No one else will tell you this who's running for president. That if we are going to make the changes that the American people want and deserve, yes, we're going to have to take on Wall Street. Yes, we're going to have to take on the insurance companies. Yes, we're going to have to take on the drug companies. Yeah, we're going to have to take on the fossil fuel industry. Yes, we're going to have to take on the military-industrial complex. Yes, we're going to have to take on the prison-industrial complex. Now, I wish I could give you a great speech. Don't worry about that. We'll just move forward. But you know that's not true. You know there have been honest people for 100 years talking about all the great things they wanted to do, but it never happened. It never happened because we have not yet successfully taken on the greed and corruption of the corporate elite. So that is what this campaign is about. I'm asking a lot of you. I am asking a lot of you. Obviously, I'm asking for your votes on Tuesday, but I'm asking for more than that. I am asking you to work with me after our inauguration, to come back and to say, yes, we are going to stand together and say that in America, if you work 40 hours a week, you're not going to live in poverty. Yes, education is a human right for all of our people, regardless of their income. Yes, health care is a human right. Medicare for all. Yes, we are going to lead the world in climate change and save the planet. So that is where we are right now. That is where we are right now. And on Tuesday, a few days from today, will be an enormously important day. If we win here in New Hampshire, and with your help, I think we can win. It'll make it easier for us to win in Nevada and in South Carolina and in California. It will make it easier for us to win the Democratic nomination and then have the opportunity to soundly defeat the most dangerous president in American history. Thank you all very much.